Crystal Palace taking on Chelsea. Let's hear from Graham Potter, but first, Patrick Vieira.
We'll face, of course, one of the best team in the Premier League, and we will be ready for that. We work well in the last couple of weeks, and we will be ready to compete.
He's done a fantastic job. I mean, I think he built on the foundations that Royce laid in terms of a defensive structure. Added some really good attacking players, not just in the attacking positions. I think the centre-backs have made a difference to them in terms of how they defend and how they build their attacks. Always difficult to play against. Patrick's team's well organised, good spirit, epitomises him as a player as well. So, no, I think he's done a really good job there.
Well, it's Graham Potter's first Premier League match in charge of Chelsea, and it's quite unusual, really, to appoint a manager partway through the season and for them to be given this amount of time to prepare for their first Premier League match. He's obviously managed the team in the Champions League, which ended as a 1-1 draw. But what are you expecting to see from this new Chelsea under Mr. Potter?
Yeah, I mean, obviously for Brighton fans, yourself, Jules, I'm sure you're really devastated that he's left, but I think it was inevitable.
I'm hiding it really well, aren't I?
It was inevitable. I mean, obviously he was linked to the Tottenham job last year as well, but this makes sense. And, I think all the journalists seem to like Graham Potter. He has a good relationship with them, but I think obviously managing a team like Brighton in not a disrespectful way, but this is Chelsea. So it's obviously the pressure's going to be there. Obviously he's not, to have that amount of time to prepare for a game, I think is really helpful because he can get used to the players. I know a lot of them are on international duty, but I'm really happy that he got this job because I think he deserves, he's a young English manager similar to Eddie Howe that I don't think often people are talking about Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard because of their pedigree as a player. I feel like Eddie Howe and Graham Potter often go underneath the radar, and I think he deserves this opportunity, but ultimately they have to win. Because I thought Tuchel getting sacked was a bit harsh. Let's be honest, I think everybody did, especially in that way, spending all that money in the transfer window and then getting sacked. But I'm looking forward to seeing what type of, system Graham Potter will play, because we saw at Brighton, he got the best out of those players and he made them even better.
How much can we read into that 1-1 draw in the Champions League and the way he set up? Because he played with a back four. We know that Chelsea under Tuchel have always, more often than not, played with a back five. Is this how he expects them to play moving forward in a back four?
I think so. I think it might well be that he wants to unlock the creative potential in the side. My concern for that tactic and for this game is that they haven't kept a clean sheet since the opening game of the season. And even in that game against Everton, they were unconvincing. If Everton had a forward line, they probably would have scored. And that Champions League game, I mean, we're seeing Chelsea conceding here, and I think as far as they're concerned, that moment right there is very significant, and I'll tell you why. I was on pre-season tour with Chelsea. One of my colleagues asked Edouard Mendy about his kicking and his ball distribution, and Edouard was not impressed with the question. And he kind of bristled a bit, but it has turned out, particularly this season, to be quite a prescient question because there have been issues around his distribution. And I think as far as that, if you combine that with the defensive issues that they have at Chelsea, I think a team who plays with confidence, you saw West Ham scoring right there, and takes the game to Chelsea, combined with the fact that there is one fewer defender there, I think it could be quite an interesting game tomorrow. I wouldn't necessarily. In recent seasons, look at the stats, they've won 8 of the last 9, they've kept 7 clean sheets, but this is not that Chelsea team. This is a very different Chelsea team. Combine that too with the fact that there are a number of staff at Chelsea who in the international break have left the club. They're changing things behind the scenes. You know what it's like as a player. You like routine, you like stability. I'm just a little bit concerned for Chelsea. I think Palace might upset the odds.
But when Mendy came in last year with Thiago Silva, their back line looked like it kind of, set them up really well, didn't it? They looked more comfortable at the back. But maybe, your journalist friend maybe highlighted the problem because Mendy seemed to hide it really well last year, and I thought he had a really good season last year. But this year, he doesn't look as comfortable on the ball, and even getting Koulibaly in, you'd expect. Obviously, he got that red card. So there's a little bit, but they've still got top players, haven't they?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I mean, they still have top players. They just need to find, Graham Potter just needs to find a way to get the best out of those players, and I think he will.
That's why Tuchel lost his job, precisely because they do have top players, but they're not reaching their potential. And we know that they can because they've won the Champions League. But they've fallen below that. They're conceding goals hand over fist. And I think as far as Potter's concerned, he has to win over the players and get the players playing to a level that they can and get that stability back. If they can do that, yeah, absolutely, they've got a chance. But I'm going to just take a watching brief for now.
Well, there's a couple of potential absentees for Chelsea as well, Mendy being one of them, but also Cucurella, who was at Brighton with Graham Potter previously as well. However, we could see the Premier League debut of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He featured in the Champions League as a forward, Leanne. What do you expect to see from him? Could we potentially see him back at his best in a Chelsea shirt?
I think so. I mean, I'm probably in the minority, but I'm a big fan of Aubameyang. I don't think we talked about the documentary earlier, but I don't think that documentary did Aubameyang any favours. But I think you look at the respect that he had from his teammates. Obviously, Tuchel, Aubameyang going there, and Tuchel was his manager at Dortmund, and now Tuchel's gone. It might be a little bit different under Graham Potter, but Chelsea desperately need a number 9. They do. And I think he can score goals. I mean, it wasn't long ago he was scoring goals for Arsenal. That situation, didn't turn out well, but he went to Barcelona. He was only there for 6 months and he was banging in goals from the moment he got there. So if Aubameyang's happy, like a lot of players, you'll get the best out of him. So I think Chelsea desperately need the number 9 because it's almost become the talk of the cursed position over the years, hasn't it? Yeah. Even going all the way back to when Kesman was there. There's so many players, apart from Drogba, there's not been many players that have come in there. Lukaku last year.
I'm so old, I go back to Chris Sutton.
Okay. Yeah, you are, Darren. But you know what I mean, though? It's like a cursed position at Chelsea. And I think Aubameyang can score goals and they put the ball in the right areas. The delivery from Reece James, and those types of players, they provide a service. And I feel like he can score a lot of goals for them.
Darren, you mentioned that you think that potentially Crystal Palace could cause an upset here. Why is that? What have you made of them this season?
Well, they don't... There's a lot of energy in the Crystal Palace team. There's a lot of belief in the team. He is a very patient manager, so much so. I remember seeing them on many occasions a couple of seasons ago and thinking he was such a wonderful footballer. Surely he must run out of patience with some of their decision-making, some of their indecision in front of goal. But he has empowered them to take responsibility. They got to the FA Cup final precisely for that. Some people say they've lost a bit of energy because they don't have Conor Gallagher anymore, but they have other players who are really growing into the role. I like Michael Elise. I think he's going to be a fabulous player. He was a player of the season last season in the Championship. I think as far as they're concerned, they will smell the uncertainty in the Chelsea team, and I think they will be able to take the game to them. I think they beat Arsenal last season. They beat Tottenham last season. They are not afraid of superior opposition, and that's the reason why I think they'll take an opportunity and maybe shock a few people.
They play good football, but we were speaking about this before. They don't seem to know how to win games.
Well, they've only won once this season.
Yeah, and it's evident. Since Patrick Vieira's in there, you can see them playing around the pitch. In triangles, they're playing good football. But you mentioned Elise. They've got Eze, Wilfred Zaha, who never seems to have a bad game. And he always steps up when he needs to. But so I agree. There could be an upset caused, but I do think, Crystal Palace need to find a way to win games because we can all sit here and say they're playing good football, but ultimately the fans will want the team to be winning. You can see the difference Patrick Vieira's making, but they're not winning games.